Hi, Eravi. I'm so excited to have you here join us at the HeadSpin Corner. Really excited to see you, and thank you for being part of our company as well as joining. And want to learn a lot more about you during this conversation. So, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and tell us an app or a game that you absolutely love right now.
Hi, Jeena. First of all, thank you very much. I'm honored to be in the Headspin Corner. Uh, I've been in California for a while now, more than 15 years. We live in Cupertino at the home of you know what. And I've always been at the crossroads of tech and business. That's been like my journey mostly. Mostly it's been a creative venture in terms of creating new enterprises and new ventures on the way. In terms of what I love to do, if I get time from Headspin, what I do is play with my son. And he's introduced me to a new game called Mope, new game to me called Mope. And that's quite a fascinating game. It's a very social game. So we actually play the game along with his friends.
Nice. Thank you. How did you take the career path that you are on currently? What made you actually move to Headspin and focus on the enterprise side?
Lot of accidents. I wouldn't say it's a lot by design. That's how life is, I suppose. That's how life is lived best. I started my career in a startup. I was a product manager in a startup. It went bust in the dot-com bust. And then I joined a larger company and had a great journey there in terms of that company went from being a $100 million company to an $8 billion company. And it was great to be part of the journey because I landed up in places where we were trying to do things for the first time. And that was an amazing learning ground for me. And I got to work with a lot of different varieties of industries, telecom, banking, online media, uh, a lot of tech. The last 10, 12 years has been a lot of Silicon Valley tech, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Salesforce, SAP. Um, so it's been a very interesting journey from that perspective. And I was probably an entrepreneur in a large company. And so I always had the thing about uh, being a creator rather than a person who runs something which is already created. And having worked with enterprises for the longest time, I thought Headspin is a great platform to bring it all together. And I had experienced Headspin before. I had used Headspin to solve problems for my clients before. So I knew the power of the platform. So all of that put together, plus a happy accident, brought me here.
Amazing. And I'm glad you chose us. It's been amazing to work with you and learn so much from you during the last few months. So really excited and looking forward to the next, phase of our learning and contributions. I'm curious to know now that, do you agree that we've come to that point where we're all very, digitally native? Do you agree with that phrase, especially given the socio-economic conditions right now and the global pandemic situation that we are in? What are your thoughts around being digitally native, and what could enterprises do today to kind of navigate and succeed?
Absolutely. I think today we live in uh, times that we couldn't have imagined just a few weeks back, a few months back. Um, First of all, a lot of respect to the frontline workers, to the folks who are doing the hard work while we can afford to be on a Zoom call. So I think a lot of gratitude and thanks to all of them. But what this pandemic has brought to fore is the fact that digital natives is the only way to survive and thrive in today's world. You can really see the difference between digital natives and the rest when you look at the results, when you look at the bankruptcy filings, when you look at the companies uh, looking for leverage and cash. uh, a lot of it is one, of course, there is a sectoral impact for sure in terms of hospitality, transportation, and anything related to that for sure. But on the other side, it's also when you look at enterprises about companies which have been able to transition to becoming a digital native enterprise rather than a traditional company with a lot of discrete elements to it and whatnot. So when you talk about um, starting with enabling frontline workers, right? Do they have the kind of tools that are required? They have to be mobile, and they have to get information on the fingertips. They have to get insights that they can act on very quickly. If you look at companies, are you able to operate in a world where most of your physical assets are not accessible anymore? So this is an interesting time that we're living through, where really the folks who will succeed and thrive will be the folks who can make the transition to being a truly digital business.
Okay, thank you. And just shifting gears a little bit, tell us a little more about how HeadSpin's journey has been with enterprises.
Sure. So Headspin, uh, the way I look at Headspin, it's amazing to think that Headspin is a 4-year-old company which has come thus far, right? It's amazing. I mean, 4 years is, come to think of it, it's a very, very young company, but at the same time, I can clearly see we are in the third generation of Headspin, so to say, right? That's how fast we have been evolving. Headspin started off as a dev platform created by devs for devs, right? That's sort of like where we started with our Zoogla, Y Combinator kind of background and genesis that we had. And clearly the second generation of Headspin is when we became a platform to test real world scenarios, right? When you could actually run automated tests in real world situations, on real devices, on real networks, and all of that. And the last 7, 8 months is when I think we've entered the third generation of, of Headspin, which is where we are an enterprise platform for experience insights, right? And why is that relevant? Because you asked me the question about digital natives. So what defines success in the digital universe? Uh, Putting it very simply is three things. One is speed. So in the good old days, the big differentiator for companies was capital, right? The larger companies kept on becoming larger. And even if they were not the innovator, they could catch up with anybody based on the might of the capital. But today's speed is what sets you apart. You cannot catch up with the Tesla, which has out innovated everybody else that fast. They are years and years over everybody else. You cannot catch up with Netflix that easily because they out innovated everybody else by far, right? So speed is a very defining factor in terms of digital success. The second is intuitive experiences. Really in terms of uh, being easy to do. The idea might be fantastic, but how easy it for your customers and users to experience what you have and get what they have to do with you. And the third part of it is flexibility, because people want to consume as they please. People want to mix it with others. So you have to be open, you have to be flexible, you have to work with a lot of other things. So for me, these three things, speed, intuitive experiences, and flexibility defines digital success.
Mm-hmm.
And that's clearly where Headspin as a platform for experience insights comes in, right? Because we play into all the three kind of factors which define digital success.
So playing on that, would you say, I mean, when you were talking about it, it reminded me of like how the platform that we're consuming right now, Zoom, is actually one of those as well, right? Like in terms of speed, in terms of being flexible, because there is no there's no barrier to entry. There is no premium you have to pay up front to actually be part of the Zoom platform. What are your thoughts around, like speed, flexibility, and even just capability wise and innovation? How do you see that also being translated with other companies or other examples? Tesla is a great example. Are there other enterprises that you're working with where you see that? And do you want to like talk about that as well?
Absolutely. So it's interesting how telecom is fast evolving, right? So if you look at the fact that 5G is already here and we are now experiencing 5G networks in many parts of the world, uh, that changes the game completely, right? In terms of the fact that many value chains will now get redefined based on the fact that you have that kind of resource available, and hence you don't have to do it the traditional way, right?
Mm.
Uh, I mean, we can just look back 20 years back when we had dial-up connections. and then we had narrowband, then we had broadband, then we had, where we are, and now that's going to be 10x, 20x, 30x of that, right? Imagine the potential that holds, right? So uh, telecom is a clear example that comes to my mind where you can see the companies acquiring assets, uh, media assets.
Mhm.
Verizon just bought Blue Jeans, right? Talking about Zoom. So clearly they're thinking about the fact that what does the end user want from me, right?
Mhm.
What can I deliver to them? What kind of experiences can I deliver to them? We are in the experience economy. So if I want to succeed, my users will come to me for the experiences I deliver rather than just the fact that I got a fat pipe,
Yeah.
right? So I think that's a, I think a good example of that kind of transformation happening right in front of our eyes.
Okay. And well, when you think about like the partners and the enterprises as well as the categories and industries that Headspin supports, are there specific verticals or industries that do really well, or is this applicable to any and all? Do you have examples that you want to share there?
So first, it's a broad phenomenon, Gina. It's like, uh, it's actually not industry specific, right? Going back to that meme from Mark Andreessen in 2011 about software is eating the world. Now we are in a phase where software has eaten the world,
Mhm.
right? So it's a very broad phenomenon where across the board, uh, the most discrete of industry value chains are digital or becoming digital, like manufacturing, right? Manufacturing is as discrete as it gets because on one side it's got raw materials and you have to bring the raw materials to a factory, you have to manufacture things, then you distribute it, get it to a retailer, wholesaler, what have you, and get it to the end customer, right? If you look at that kind of a value chain, that has been digitalized, and that's truly software driven at this point in time. So it's a broad phenomenon, and the three factors that I mentioned applies broadly to everybody. But having said that, there are some industries in which it is manifesting a lot more than the rest, right? uh, Fintech is a great example, right? So because Stripe, who would have thought a company in just a matter of 7, 8 years would redefine the space of payments? And what's the imperative? The imperative is speed, intuitive experience, and flexibility, right? Of course, they've made it very cheap in the whole process.
Mhm.
But fintech is a great example of that. Another example of that is healthcare, right? Healthcare is fast evolving because empowering the end user and the consumer to manage their health is becoming a big phenomenon, right? So, Gina, you come from Google, so you've seen the explosion of wearables, right? The explosion of fitness driven thematic, app platform kind of place. And that's getting very serious now because you have monitor app kind of models, right? Whether implants in people, and that's monitored using an app, and the patient knows or the person knows what's really going on with their body at any given point in time, right? So healthcare is definitely another space where we see a lot of disruption happening as a result of this, right? Another is online media, right? I mean, who would have thought? I mean, again, I think the pandemic has got a lot to do with it. The consumption of online media is through the roof, but nobody's going to go back. Once you've experienced this form of consumption and this ease of consumption and this flexibility of consumption, nobody's going to go back from here, right? So those are some examples I would say.
Actually, people might not even remember what it was because you've already set new habits
Yeah.
to kind of like get people used to that kind of consumption or at that rate or speed of consumption.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
I can give you a personal example, Gina. I mean,
yeah.
uh, I never used Instacart before, right? We never used Instacart before, right? Now all we do is Instacart and Amazon Fresh, right? That's what the pandemic has done. I don't think we're going back. It's so convenient, so useful, and you don't have to spend 2 hours trying to do your grocery run for the week, right?
Yeah.
So I'm personally an evidence of that transformation.
Amazing. Okay. Thank you for sharing that. I was thinking about like, from my experience working with developers and businesses in Android as a tech ecosystem. I've seen and personally observed how Android has, kind of disrupted, but also continued to innovate with the developers hand in hand and figure out like what is the next level of, what are the tools and resources and what are the insights that they can provide. And I'm curious to know, like, how has that been on your side in terms of like how are tech ecosystems super fundamental to enterprise success and growth? Can you shed more light as to how that has been and how you've observed them?
Sure thing. Definitely. I think, first of all, I've learned a lot about how disruptive Android has been from you because, I mean, you can read a lot, but nothing like coming from somebody who's lived through that transformation, right? And I've heard the war stories from you in terms of how you've seen, indie developers become billion-dollar enterprises right in front of your eyes, right? That's fascinating, isn't it? So, uh, from an enterprise perspective, I've seen the rise of the three horsemen, right? If you want to include a fourth, I think there's an aspiring fourth there, but at least a three, which is Microsoft with the Azure platform, Amazon Web Services, and Google with the Google Cloud Platform. And the fourth, let's keep it as a joker in the pack, right? There are a whole bunch of people aspiring for that fourth right now. But that's the 4 or 5 defining platforms for the enterprise at this point in time, right? And when you talk about being a retail native, I think these tech ecosystems are going to be the fundamental fabric behind it. I mean, you build companies on top of these tech ecosystems at this point in time. So they are like the infrastructure, right? They are like the good old times we used to have, land and power and water and all of that, and these platforms are akin to that in the retail universe, right? And where we really come in, and that's a great thing for us because we are all about ensuring amazing flawless experiences in the digital universe, right? That's what we stand for, that's what we enable as a platform. And so when companies and enterprises build their businesses on these tech ecosystems, right, it is fairly complex because it's not one thing. It's they will consume a core platform and then that's got different elements to it. There are a lot of ecosystem players in the tech ecosystem who will come and provide services on top of it. Through all these uh, connections, through all these endpoints, through all these edges, you have to still deliver amazing end user experience because we go back to the 3 success factors of the retail economy, right? So you got to through all this, you have to have that enabled. So hence we come in, right? I think that's what we're seeing today because if I look at one of the examples I can say is of a company which is doing a massive cloud transformation. They were running all their services in their on-premise data centers, colo centers in different parts of the world. And today they have moved on to one of the big tech platforms. Mm-hmm. Now they have lost control over a big part of what they would have considered the infrastructure, right? So they own the application, they own the service, and the end user still has to get that flawless service, irrespective of the fact that it's actually deployed on a tech ecosystem, which has got very different variables to it, right? That's where we come in. So in 40 locations across the world, we're actually helping them ensure that the end user is having an awesome experience. I love this famous quote by Steve Jobs, which is the customer doesn't know what they want. And, I come to think of it, HeadSpin is playing into that in the sense that the user doesn't know what they have and what they need, so to say. And HeadSpin is ensuring the user gets what they need, right? And that's how we play together. So when you have this digital infrastructure provided by the tech ecosystems, HeadSpin ensures that the end user is at the center of that. And that's so critical for these enterprises because if the end user is happy, the user stays with you, you grow your business, right?
And to that point, I also would say that the end user may not know what they want or what they need, but they also don't, once they get what they want, they don't really need to know the technology that powered it because it's the experience that really matters. So it's almost like HeadSpin as that platform or that provider is, doesn't, it's omnipresent and doesn't have to be front and center, but at the same time powers that kind of an experience. So the user gets what they want, what they are delighted with, and the technology takes care of everything else. So investing in the right technology and the right platform provider in this case becomes more crucial, because when something is not working as intended, then you can actually step into the platform and understand where drill down into the areas of performance. So yeah.
You make a wonderful point, Gina. I think beautifully said. Thank you very much for that, because uh, you made a very pertinent point, which is the fact that this can get very technologically complex, right? And people can tend to forget the end user, because ultimately you're trying to make things work and you're trying to deliver a service, and people can forget the end user. And I can give you examples of that. If you look at the APM industry, right, the application performance monitoring industry, fascinating. I think they've been a big part of the digital transformation we have seen. But what I'm hearing from our customers again and again is the fact that I, thanks to APM, I have tons of digital signals. I have tons of data points.
Mm-hmm.
What do I do with it? I mean, because if I end up triaging and engaging with each of those signals, uh, I just I don't have enough bandwidth and resource to do that, right? And that's where HeadSpin squarely comes in, right? Because HeadSpin will start with the user experience and the user journey, right? And say, as the user journeys through the experience, what's happening? What are the signals which are weak? What are the signals which are strong? What's aiding a good experience? What's impeding a good experience? And then you can go act on it. So you are saving the customers, our enterprise customers, especially for or developers or gamers or any of them for that matter, from the data deluge they have, thanks to a lot of tools out there which provides the data, and making them focus on what's important, which is the end user experience. So you make a great point of saying that we probably, make this whole world so much more simple and say that forget about all the technology pieces there. Let's focus on the end user experience.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for actually elaborating on that. It's exactly how I was thinking as well, and thinking about like how Headspin provides that value prop to enterprises. Moving on and kind of like towards the tail end of our conversation, is what is next for Headspin in the enterprise space? What's next for you as you think about navigating this space as well? Tell us a little more about that.
Sure. I think the most inspiring thing has been to see our team in action, right? I think it's a fascinating bunch of people who have come together at this point in time, I should say. I think we got a phenomenal bunch of ideators and thinkers, and we have an amazing bunch of engineers, right? And what I've observed over the last so many months is the fact that our product is fast evolving, right? I've seen entire modules stand up on a product which was not there just a few weeks back, right? And it's fast evolving. So if you look at we were always the kings of mobile, and now we are becoming the kings of enterprise browser applications. We are becoming the kings of cloud application experience. We are becoming fairly significant when it comes to edge experiences, right? I think there's a big journey there that's getting accelerated month on month in terms of new features, functionalities we're delivering, uh, because of the fact that we're able to support as many endpoints as one can think about, right? And that's the power and beauty of our platform, is that we are not beholden to native apps or browser apps. We support screenless devices. We support HDMI capture devices. We support gateways. Every other week, Gina, a customer comes to me with a device that they have created, and they're saying, "Can you make this work? I want to actually look at user experience on this device." More often than not, we are able to actually support the device. That's the power of our platform, right? Today in the era of COVID, field testing is so important, right? So a lot of interesting companies are coming to us saying, I can't send people out there across different cities and different parts of the world to do field testing. Can you enable this amazingly interesting device that I have created and allow me to do field testing, right? So our platform is fast evolving to satisfy these kind of needs. That's on one side. In terms of how, so we are becoming very relevant to enterprises in terms of just features, functionalities, and whatnot. In terms of working with enterprises, the first thing that's important is marrying enterprise use cases, opportunity statements, problem statements to our platform, right? That's where solutions really come in, right? Really bringing those kind of areas and problem statements, use cases to our platform and creating a solution out of it. That's one thing we're focusing on a lot in terms of ensuring that we speak the language of our customers and we're able to solve problems which are important for our customers. In the journey of doing that, we're partnering with tech ecosystem players, the names that we discussed, because they are fundamental to the infrastructure of this world. Then we are working with specialist players who bring certain things for certain industries. They have solved problems for certain industries, and they, along with HeadSpin, is of big value to our customers. And then, from an engagement perspective, really working with partners, system integrators who sort of like have the capability to work at scale, right? Take a Headspin, take a third-party solution, work with a tech ecosystem player, and then deliver it at scale to a large customer, right? That's where that partner ecosystem really comes in. What defines success for us is having large customers, right? Having customers who stay with us and bring a lot more use cases to us and become larger and larger with us, right? That's sort of like how we are, working with that evolving enterprise ecosystem.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you so much for all everything that you shared. And do you have any parting thoughts for enterprises as we wrap up our conversation?
This too shall pass. I think that's what I would say. I think hang tight. We are here to help you, and we'll stay very close to our customers. And I think the next few months will be fairly defining, not just from exiting the current situation the world is in, but also from entering a new universe of possibilities where companies are truly in the digital universe.
Yeah. Thank you again, and hope you have a really good day and rest of the week. Thank you for joining us at Headspin Corner. Thank you, Ravi.
Welcome, Jeena. Thank you very much.